Welcome to Now in the 90s, where we look at the game releases of 30 years ago today. This week, one of the coolest things ever gets a gun and sunglasses, one of the most recognizable FMV games of all time, and some of the most infamous games of all time. Hi, I'm your host, Jared, and today is October 13th, 1993. Sure, we've already had one Zelda game this year, but what if we had three? Released on October 10th, 1993 for the Philips CDI was Link, The Faces of Evil, and Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon. Link, The Faces of Evil is a side-scrolling action game. Play as Link as he tries to save the new land of Korodai, defeat enemies, collect new items and equipment, and take down bosses. You can also find NPCs to interact with for information and shopping, with numerous animated cutscenes of dubious quality. Defeat the evil Ganon and save Princess Zelda from her cursed sleep. Zelda Wand of Gamelon plays exactly the same, only as Zelda, with her own adventure, her own storyline setting, and her own items to find. The animated cutscenes are of the same quality, and she too defeats Ganon to save Link at the end. We haven't talked about the Philips CDI a whole lot on the show, and that's for a particular reason. Though the Philips CDI was released in 1991, it was technically not a gaming machine. Most of its software were things like encyclopedias or interactive museum tours. Because of this, the FTC did not designate it as a gaming console, though more video game software slowly started to roll out for it in 1993.
Say you're dancing to your favorite CD and someone says,
I can see it, man, I can see it!
And you're thinking, loser. But actually it's a premonition.
It's CDI, friends. Next generation CD player that works with your TV.
I see amazing movies, man. I see incredible games. I see this whole world.
That guy creeps me out.
I think he's kind of interesting.
Now get into CDI starting at $2.99 with 3 titles free, including Burn Cycle.
These days, it's very well known where the Philips CDI came from. Nintendo partnered with Sony to make a CD add-on for the Super NES called the PlayStation, only they backed out of the deal last minute to team up with Philips, who then made the CDI. As part of the initiative to support the CDI, Nintendo licensed some of their biggest properties to Philips to develop games exclusively for their console. After seeing how poorly the Sega CD went, Nintendo then backed out of that entirely, but they still already gave Philips some licensing. This resulted in games including the 2 Zelda games we're talking about today. Nintendo had nothing to do with their development, as it was all done entirely by the studio Animation Magic. All Nintendo did was make sure that the designs for Link and Zelda look good enough. Which, the way Zelda is designed, the purple, the blue vest, that's totally based off the Zelda cartoon, right? The pair of games were officially unveiled at the Summer Consumer Electronics Show in 1993. Owners of the CDI who were promised high-end games with lots of video felt justified in their purchase, especially with something as amazing as The Legend of Zelda coming to their platform, let alone 2 of them. Leading up to the release, previews of the 2 games were very hyped up. SNES Force magazine had a preview article calling the animation, quote, breathtaking, and also called the sound quality and the voice acting to be, quote, brilliant. These days, we know that the games are very not good. The animation is atrocious. The backgrounds, while detailed, makes it impossible to tell what's a platform and what isn't. The hit detection on sword attacks is abysmal, and even just trying to jump takes way more effort than it should. Along with the constant enemy spawning, the game is incredibly difficult and downright cryptic. And also remember, when these games came out, the only controller most CDI owners even had was the awful TV remote style one. We know these games are awful, instantly infamous the day they released. How did people feel when they came out though? Not as negative as you'd expect. Both got reviewed by the official CDI magazine. Yeah, the CDI had its own magazine, where Link Faces of Evil garnered around a 60%. Zelda Wand of Gamelon somehow was higher, around 70%, even though they're basically the same. Link was somewhat of a disappointment, but Zelda was a reasonably good game. They didn't sell well. It was a combination of the Philips CDI having a low install base, and current CDI owners weren't necessarily looking for Nintendo games. It was also very clear, very quickly, that the games were just not good. That doesn't mean that they aren't ironically beloved. Both games quickly hit the so bad it's good mantra, and thanks to YouTube in the 2000s. An abundance of memes created from their cutscenes have cemented themselves in the zeitgeist of gaming history. It's been taken a step further. In 2020, Seth Fulkerson remastered both games to have HD widescreen support, improved controls, better hit detection, and unlimited continues. Taking it even a step further, Fulkerson is the head developer behind the upcoming title, Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, a game taking direct inspiration from the CDI Zelda games and even has the same original voice actors for Link and Zelda. And honestly, I can't wait. Take one of the coolest things ever to any kid and then make them cooler. Released in October 1993 for the Sega Genesis, was Dinosaurs For Hire. Dinosaurs For Hire is a run-and-gun action game. Play as one of the 3 different dinosaurs, although they all have the same weapon and their own melee attack to blast everything that comes your way. Find power-ups to improve your weapon to have a spread shot and larger, stronger bullets. Defeat massive bosses at the end of each stage and save America from ninjas or whatever. And of course, do it all in 2-player co-op. There are few known quantities in life: death, taxes, and that kids love dinosaurs. This was only helped by the recently released movie, Jurassic Park. Now give him some sunglasses, a cool jacket, and a gun, and you got a recipe for success. Dinosaurs For Hire began life as Tom Mason's Dinosaurs For Hire, a comic book series that began in 1988. It stars Lorenzo the Triceratops, Archie the T-Rex, and Reese the Stegosaurus. According to creator Tom Mason, he chose those dinosaurs to use because they were the coolest, most popular dinosaurs. And he's right. Creation of the game came along because someone at Sega of America was a fan of the comics and thought it would make for a great video game. And because Jurassic Park was huge. Mason was hands-on for the development of the game and also created the Pteranodon Serrano exclusively for the game, who would then go on to appear in the comic line. The game was originally meant to release in May of 1993, but positive response at the Consumer Electronics Show caused Sega to delay the game a bit so that they could add in more things the game needed. More explosions and more snarky dialogue. I think the weirdest part that always threw me off as a kid is that the instant you turn the game on and press start, you're thrown right into a stage on the Hoover Dam fighting that giant turtle thing. You don't even give him a moment to select 2-player mode or whatever, and then if you beat it, the credits fake roll and then Cyrano shows up and makes some blast processing jokes and then the game really starts? It was weird. Reviews for the game were mid to positive. GamePro magazine liked it the most, with an average score of a 3.8 out of 5, noting its uneven difficulty and every enemy besides a boss is bland. Electronic Gaming Monthly liked it much less, calling it more of a shoddy, uninspired Contra clone. The Dinosaurs For Hire comic line ended in 1994, despite almost getting a cartoon show around the same time. Along with the franchise's demise, the video game was never ported or re-released onto anything else. Unlike this next one, which was absolutely everywhere, released this week in 1993, was Mad Dog McCree for the Sega CD. Mad Dog McCree is a light gun game. Grab onto your 6-shooter and roll into this old west town taken over by Mad Dog McCree and his gang of bandits. The mayor and his daughter have been taken hostage and it's up to you to save them by shooting every single guy you see. Choose different locations to examine, which leads to a lot more shootouts. Eventually, have the final shootout with the Mad Dog himself. Mad Dog McCree was originally released in 1990 as a Laserdisc-based arcade game. Made on a budget of only $125,000, it quickly became one of the most profitable arcade games of early 1991. It was kind of hard to ignore in the early 90s. That kind of interactive live-action video with real actors that you could shoot at and have them react to was mind-blowing. I saw a cabinet in an arcade in a mall, and the line to play it was dozens of people long. Everyone only lasted like 2 minutes because the game was hard at the time and cost like $2 to play. The Sega CD version did have to make some concessions. The FMV videos are very compressed compared to the arcade original. Thankfully, you are still able to play it using either just a standard controller and moving a cursor around on the screen, or using the Sega Menacer light gun for that true experience. I'd argue it's also even harder than the original, because frankly, the smaller video size and the sheer number of blurry pixels made it even harder to tell what even was an enemy and what wasn't. Early previews of the game touted that Mad Dog McCree was coming to home console first, thanks to the Sega CD. It was called the best shoot 'em up of the year, and getting to play it at home without the need of quarters for as many continues as you need was exciting. Actual reviews of the game were just as excited and filled with praise. Outlets like GamePro magazine gave it almost perfect scores. The only thing it didn't do well in was, of course, the graphics, because the low bitrate video did make it difficult to discern what blob of pixels was an enemy or not. The Sega CD version of Mad Dog McCree would be the best home version of the game for a while, as the upcoming 3DO release in November 1993 did have better video, but far too much of a lag when it came to resolving shots. It wasn't until the CDI version that the Sega CD version was dethroned as the best home port. Mad Dog McCree did so well in the arcades that it got a direct sequel, Mad Dog 2: The Lost Gold. That sequel would eventually find its way also onto the Sega CD in 1994. Since then, the series got bundled and re-released multiple times as a DVD game on the Nintendo Wii, for the Nintendo 3DS, for iPhones, and for the PlayStation 3. And he just got done bombing some Dodongos, so for everything else released this week, here's Editor Dylan.
I'm going to a convention this weekend, so I'll try to be quick. Keyword being try. We both know that's not gonna happen. Buster Bros was already covered for home console releases, but it's worth mentioning this game is perfect for the Game Boy. The single screen levels are ideal for the simple pick up and play experience. The Real Ghostbusters is a side-scrolling puzzler that is basically the beginning of Kirby's Great Cave Offensive. Fall in a hole, collect some stuff, get out. Only in this one you play as what I always called a fake Ghostbuster. Calling these guys the Real Ghostbusters is like referring to Crystal Pepsi as Pepsi Dark. It's just objectively wrong. But if you're from PAL regions, then you might recognize this game as Garfield Labyrinth. It's the same thing, only here, instead of being a knockoff of a Ghostbuster, you're a knockoff of Mickey Mouse. Wait, what? That's because months before either of these games were released, Mickey Mouse 4 Magical Labyrinth released in Japan. And I don't have time to go into Mickey offshoots, so I'll just assume some stupid licensing issues caused Americans to rework this game so we would get the worst version. Luckily, a better cartoon than any of them also got a Game Boy release this week. Tom and Jerry Frantic Antics, which plays just like the last Tom and Jerry Game Boy game I covered back in last October. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first game in the franchise that lets you play as Tom for once. Even if it's not, I just appreciate the fact that they finally didn't assume we all just want to be Jerry. Now give Tom a zoot suit and we got ourselves an instant classic. The last cartoon-based Game Boy game we got was Popeye 2, a sequel to a game that wasn't even good enough to release outside of Japan. So this one must be better, right? Actually, yeah, in every way. It's essentially on par with Super Mario Land in terms of gameplay and general presentation. And before you get too excited, the original Mario Land, not the one that introduced Wario. But I think Mario Land 1 gets a bad rap. I loved it. And if you did as well, then this game more than deserves to be in your collection. Remember last week when I said Dungeon Explorer 2 went the route of Gauntlet? Well, Gauntlet 4 released on the Genesis this week. But it's technically the 5th game in the series, and it's basically a reimagining of the original. So why call it 4? Well, probably because it's got that 4-player co-op action, instantly making it the absolute best Gauntlet game until we get Legends. Which reminds me, I still need to get that game and Dark Legacy at the Expo tomorrow. Now before we move on to the last game this week, Gauntlet 4's music is next level. Hidden Jam Alert! The title theme really doesn't do justice to the hidden jellies this game offers. I wish I had time to show you the 3-minute brilliance of the Wind Tower because it's Genesis God tier. I highly urge you to look up the track Transparent Obstacle and let me know what you think. And don't skip ahead, it's an experience to say the least. Hopefully there's not much to say about Ranger X for the Genesis because I'm already going over time. I don't know anything about this game other than that one dude in the comments was convinced we skipped it because Wikipedia only lists the Japanese release dates. So the level starts off with Damn it! Alert. I don't have time for a hidden gem. Alright, fine. Let's just try to do this in one take. You're a giant mech shooting aircrafts as they drop bombs while ATSTs flank from both angles while taking out mortar launchers that are visibly peppering the city in the distance with enemy fire while switching to flamethrowers, heat-seeking missiles, and bombs as you zip around on a jetpack. Well, that's probably everything. You have a rideable motorbike companion that you can individually control simultaneously alongside the robot with that 6-button controller you just got for Street Fighter but mostly used for Mortal Kombat. Is that all? You could also combine with said motorbike for extra mobility options and playstyles. Before each level, there are 3D wireframe cutscenes setting up the context for the next mission. Please tell me that's everything. There are big, f***off-sized bosses with a unique and varied soundtrack. From upbeat to menacing, to jazzy and playful, to chill and somber, to borderline ethereal. And that's not mentioning the slew of interesting stories involving the development of the game and the company. But damn it, the Portland Retro Gaming Expo doesn't wait for anyone. And if I don't wrap up now, I'm gonna be late and miss my chance to get those Gauntlet games. All the N64s are probably sold out already, so I'll have to get one next year. But those were the 10 games released this week in 1993. No time for an outro, going to Pergy. Happy Friday the 13th.
Perfect, nailed it. Thank you, Dylan. Here in the collector's...
You're welcome. Sorry, I just never said you're welcome before and wanted to give it a try. But it totally ruined the flow, so I won't be doing that again.
Hey, did you get any sleep for this week?
Boy, I sure didn't.
Good. That's me doing my best Zelda impersonation.
All right, I'll see you at Pergy.
Wait. Let's both do our best impersonation of Link from Faces of Evil. I'll go first. I'm so hungry, I could eat an Octorok.
When I'm crouching, you can make me do the duck walk.
Who do you think won? Comment down below. Here in the Collector's Corner, both Zelda games are as valuable as they are awful. They released costing $49.99 each. Now, both of them are worth about $200 for the discs alone, with Faces of Evil closer to $300 for a complete copy and $250 for Wand of Gamelon complete. Dinosaurs For Hire has done okay for itself. It also released costing $49.99, with the game cartridge now worth $30. Get the case and manual, and it goes up to $80. Mad Dog McCree, however, didn't hold up. It had a retail price of $54.99 at release, and now you can get the disc alone for $12, and it's only $25 for a complete copy. And that's it for today. Next week, the first of many games from one of the biggest cartoons of the early 90s, a PSA commercial turned multimedia franchise, and do or do not, there is no try. I'm your host, Jared, and this was Now in the 90s. Thank you so much for watching Now in the 90s. I want to thank some patrons this week like Tuxedo Alex, Skizzy, and 401 Days Until Donkey Kong Country. I looked it up, he's actually correct. Please like the video and leave a comment down below, especially if you played any of the games this week, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you already are a subscriber, thank you so much for watching this show every single Friday. I didn't have any of the games to display on my shelf, but I did have a Philips CDI. I just want to show that I did have one. It would not fit up there or look good. I don't even know if this works anymore. It might need to be repaired and or troubleshoot. That could be a fun stream sometime. Let me know if you want to see me do a Twitch stream where I try to open this bad boy up and make it work again.